All right, we'll call the meeting to order. Can I get a motion, please? The agenda of the December 4th, 2018 regular meeting of council be adopted with the addition of M3 personnel matter. Councilor Chouinard will make that motion. All those in favor? Motion carried. Can I get a motion, please, that the minutes of the November 20th, 2018 regular meeting of council be adopted as presented? Councilor Bevan will make that motion. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. We have no public hearings tonight, but we do have a delegation, so I'd like to welcome the Edson District Learning Society up front, and if you want to briefly introduce yourselves, and then we'll just go around the table quickly and introduce members of council.
Yeah, my name is Sarah McPhee, and I'm the Special Projects Coordinator with the Edson District Community Learning Center.
And I'm Vera Calvert. I'm the Executive Director of Edson District Community Learning Society.
Okay, we'll start with Councillor Byer.
Crystal Meyer.
Troy Sorensen.
Janet Wilkinson.
Kevin Zahara.
Gene Chouinard.
Jackie Curry.
Trevor Bevan.
Welcome.
Thank you. See if I can do this. Oh. So, probably many of you have heard about our organization, but we thought we'd come here tonight and update you on what's going on. So our mission is to provide quality lifelong learning opportunities that are responsive to community needs and interests. And our vision is that all adults in Edson would have access to low barrier, informal learning opportunities that help them either in the workplace or in day-to-day living or in post-secondary education. So we are in our 45th year of operation, and we became a registered charity in 2013. And we are this area's Community Adult Learning Council, so we're partially provincially funded, but we do rely on community support to meet all the needs of our learners. And we operate 3 different programs. So we have community capacity building, family literacy, and the Adult Learning Center. And as you can see, we work with a number of different agencies and businesses and government organizations just to make sure that our programs are doing the best that they can do and that we're not duplicating any work. So community capacity building, that's non-credit courses for adults in the following categories. So there's workplace training, so that's something like H2S or bookkeeping. And then community issues would be something like mental health first aid or anger control. And then computers, we offer Excel and Word, and those are primarily for the workplace. And our family literacy program, so really with family literacy, we're working to strengthen the parents' literacy skills and encourage them as in their role as their parent or their child's first teacher. So we focus on the parents' literacy skills and then hope that they can bring those skills into the home and promote emerging literacy in their children. So we primarily work with barriered families for family literacy, whether that's low income or oftentimes it's a language barrier. So we work with a lot of ESL moms. And we work with a lot of different organizations in the community. Bag of Books program is offered at the library, FCSS Parent Link Center, and Brighter Futures. And with that program, it's free for families to take home a bag. And in the bag includes activities, books, and crafts, and they're all on a different theme. So that's kind of just to promote doing literacy activities at home together. And then the Newborns Need Books program is a partnership with Alberta Health Services and FCSS and is sponsored by the Rotary Club. And in that program, each newborn in Edson, when they get their visit from the public health nurse, they get a bag and it has a nice board book in it. And it also includes information about services in Edson for families, just so that when parents start to get out into the community, they know what's available. So Learning Works, our adult learning center, it was started in 2009 and it was one of 3 provincial pilot projects created with a one-time grant from Alberta Advanced Education. And we, in 2017-18, we had an average of 52 individual students who visited the center monthly, and then we had 124 registered clients. So we provide tutorial support in the following areas. Essential skills, so that's literacy development. Things like reading, writing, numeracy, document use, as well as other skills, but that's primarily what our clients are looking for when they come to the center. Trades, so we work with people who want to enter the trades and need help studying to write the entrance exam, or with apprentices who are struggling to finish their exams and need to rewrite one of their provincial exams. The GED prep course. So we just finished offering a course, and then we'll be offering another one in January. And as well, we have a whole bunch of clients who are working at their own pace to complete the GED exams. And then we also offer tutorial support for English as a second language, and we also do basic computer skills training. So EDCLS provides a mix of the following. So tutorial study support. As you can see in the picture, that's actually the Adult Learning Center. So we do a lot of computer supported learning, video conference, information and referrals, and then of course classes. Another service we offer is student supports or navigation services. As you can see in the slide, we do all sorts of things for people. Sorry. And especially for English as a second language learners when they come to Edson and they need support finding different services. But we work with a variety of other organizations in town to be able to offer referrals and just help people navigate, especially the post-secondary system, and yeah, just where to locate services. So we had, last year we had 78 individual visits from adults seeking information and referrals, and that was seeking information just about learning opportunities. So, you know, how do I get into post-secondary? What should I take? I want to do this. What education do I need to like get into that career? Things like that. Settlement services. So we just got a new contract through the provincial government for a year. And we'll be working with other organizations in town to develop a handbook of services available for newcomers. So that's primarily English as a second language. And then we'll also have a settlement support contact person available through the Learning Center just to help people. Because, you know, as you can imagine, if you came here and English was not your first language and you were struggling with that language barrier, it's helpful to have someone explain where to go and, you know, to help you read through documents and things like that. So that will be starting, I think, in January.
Most likely.
Yeah.
By the time staff is in place.
We also have a contract right now for a regional GED program. So we've been running this program since January 2015. And we offer a prep class with Hinton and Jasper, and this year we're adding Grand Cache as well. And then the clients write their exams locally through Grand Prairie Regional College, which is really nice because before they have to go to Edmonton for 2 days. So our current contract with Alberta Advanced Education runs from March 2018 to June 2020, and we are the lead site, so we kind of manage the contract. And the grant covers the cost of books, materials, instruction, tutoring, and exams for 96 adults. So 40 of those will be in Edson. We just ran a course, and that, I think we had 12 adults in that course.
12 in the course, and an additional, I believe there are 4 that were working independently. That means they come in when they have problems and they meet with the staff in the Learning Center and get some assistance with prepping for the exams.
Yeah, so we've had 65, well actually that number has increased since we put that in there, but Yeah, 65 clients successfully complete the exam, and then we have a number of clients who are still working to finish up. There's 5 exams to get your GED, so a number of clients are working to finish up 1 or 2 more exams. So we have organized and worked with volunteers to offer the following events. We do community registration night, family literacy day. We've done a number of community learning needs assessments. And last year we didn't do International Women's Day, but we are bringing it back this year. So it'll be a great event. So obviously we feel like we offer a lot to the community of Edson, and you know, the Learning Center in particular provides services in the gap kind of between high school and post-secondary. So we have, you know, a number of high schools, and then we have Grand Prairie Regional College in town. But our clients are more those who need help getting some skills developed to improve their employment, or getting their skills to a place where they would succeed in post-secondary training. So, you know, we have apprentices who are struggling to write their exams, or we have, you know, a lot of people come to us and they want to, say, apply for a job at the mine, or, you know, somewhere where a GED or a high school diploma is required, and so they need that help getting that exam out of the way. And the services we offer also help employers in town. We have done a couple of contracts with agencies to do workplace skills training for their employees. But a lot of times we just work individually with workers who are struggling a lot of times with reading and writing. So for example, we had a guy come in. He was kind of at a grade 4, grade 5 level of reading and writing, and he brought in some paperwork that he was struggling to complete every day. And so we worked with him to be able to fill in that paperwork, to understand what it was saying. You know, things like safety assessments or timesheets, you know. We work with people with those. With adults, it's important to work with them with what they're struggling with. Otherwise, it's not practical. So that's a lot of what we do. And in terms of English as a second language community, we're the only service in town available to them. The library does offer online training. But as you can imagine, it's difficult to learn a second language on the computer. So we offer courses, and then of course we help them find things in the community so they're not just struggling to settle in well. And our programs are offered at a reduced rate, so they're available to participants. So in our Adult Learning Center, how we run it is we have a sliding scale subsidy fund. So depending on your income and how many dependents you have is how much of a subsidy you will receive for the services. So we do believe that people who can pay should, but a lot of the people who access the services in the Learning Center are obviously unemployed or underemployed, and they're coming to us because they want to find a better job and they need the skill set to get there. So yeah, part of the reason too why we wanted to come is to see, I know you guys are talking about budget today, but I don't know if the town offers a community grant program or funds any nonprofits, but we are covered, you know, quite a bit with our provincial grant, and then we do pick up contracts when we can. But as far as funding the subsidy scale for the Learning Center, that's something that we're always looking for more funding for. So that's something that we wanted to see if it was available. But yeah, thanks for listening, and if anybody has any questions, we'd be happy to answer those.
All right, well, thank you, Sarah and Vera, for your presentation here today. Some very important work that you guys are doing in our community, so thank you. And we'll open the floor to questions here momentarily. What kind of, I guess the first question I think probably Councillor Chouinard is going to be asking this is, how much money are you looking for?
Well, we did have a grant that was $10,000 that we put towards our subsidy scale, and that helped quite a bit. So that would be, well, I mean, we would take anything really. But I mean, that would be the amount that we would be very excited about. Yes.
Okay.
We had an anonymous donor for the last 3 years that had provided in the neighborhood of $10,000 per year
Oh,
to help subsidize learners, but that is coming to an end, pretty much has come to an end now.
Yeah.
So, yes, this is a very unique program, as Sarah mentioned. We were one of 3 pilot programs. We've managed to keep the center running, even though the funding was only supposed to be 2-year funding to get established. We're next year at 10 years of doing this, but it's a constant struggle for our staff. They spend time looking for dollars or chasing down dollars that could be used better to help the people that come to the center. It is a model for other communities in the province. We've had people come out here to observe what goes on in the center and try to emulate. So it is something important to our community, and I think something that is worthy of support.
all right. Thank you, very Councillor Schnarr.
Okay, he did ask part of the question, but I guess part of it is where you had the town of Edson originally. Are we giving you any funding right now? I don't recall seeing any funding that was through anything like that. Since the artist, the other question is, so when people come to get your services, what would an average cost be? You mentioned subsidized, so somebody wanting to, like you had made an example, reading at a grade 4 level and they want to increase, what would it cost a person? Like, let's say if someone showed up and they wanted to advance the example you gave, what would that cost an individual to do that?
If they are coming for an assessment, all the assessments are free.
Right.
We don't charge. If they require tutoring, then if there is no subsidy, $20 an hour, which is way less than any tutoring service would charge. But we do have some subsidization from
so
advanced ed.
what I was asking is kind of a loaded question. So if you had an employee working for you and they wanted to do that, would there be a possibility that the company could pay on behalf? Like you could get a donation receipts? Because I know myself being involved in the trucking industry, a lot of the individuals with the new paperwork coming out in the last 3-4 years, so some of the employees that may want to reach out, so you could offer a service, a company could come into you and say, I need to train so many drivers to fill out exactly what you're talking about, and how would a company go about doing that?
Please just approach our Learning Center coordinator. She was unable to be here tonight because she's busy instructing part of our GED class tonight. Her name is Alana Lowen. Unfortunately, I don't have cards, but I do have my business card, and I can certainly leave those with you. I've lost my train of thought. We are a registered charity, as Sarah mentioned, so we do offer charitable donation receipts as well.
All right. Thank you, Councillor Schnarr. Any other questions from council? Councillor Bevan and then Councillor Barr.
Through the chair, you're saying, if you don't get the funding here and that you might have to cut some programs or whatever, stuff like this. I see you guys go all the way up to Grand Cache, and that's a long ways to travel on that. Go ahead, I'll let you.
That's only for one program.
Okay.
The GED grant that we received, when we first started, were able to get a grant, it was actually a contract with Human Resources to offer GED training, and we were required to offer it for the other communities that are in our Alberta Works region. Grand Cache was just added this year, and it is not a contract any longer. It is now a grant through Alberta Advanced Education.
But
And
we also don't
don't
travel
provide
there.
services there. We
Okay.
don't go there.
Yeah.
We just offer or share the funding with them. We manage the program and provide funds for them so they can kind of do the same thing there.
I kind of heard that, but I didn't hear you guys say that, so I was just
Oh,
kind
yeah, no.
of interested in
That'd
how
be
it
a long
was.
way to go.
Yeah.
And we don't travel to Hinton or Jasper either for that. We just, we manage their contract as well, but we do offer the same GED prep course. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Bevan. Councillor Byer.
Through the chair to Sarah or Vera. You guys are talking about the early childhood literacy programs that you offer. We had a presentation from the Edson Early Childhood Coalition. Do you guys work with them at all?
Yeah, we do work with them. Yeah, so we actually, our family literacy coordinator, she attends all the meetings, and they have partnered with us on the Newborns Need Books program. But yeah, we offer all of our family literacy programs in partnership with kind of the early childhood services that are already going on. So we get referrals to our program, and then we use their space as well, often is in a partnership. Yeah.
Okay. All right, that was all I had.
All right. Thank you, Councillor Byer. Councillor Wilkinson.
Mine's not actually a question, just to say thank you actually, and more Vera, because that was the era, the time that I was there, but having your facility really enabled people to further their education, because through Athabasca and then through the University of Calgary, you offered the facility and the hookup and everything that we needed, so thank you for that, really appreciate it.
You're welcome. That is working in partnership with now Grand Prairie Regional College, probably at that time the Yellowhead Region Educational Consortium.
Yeah. And then I think we were a pilot project with U of C for the master's degree, and it worked, so again, I appreciate it.
Good to hear.
Thank you, Councillor Wilkinson. Councillor Curry.
Just through the chair, 2 questions. Do you have any annual continuing sponsorship from businesses? And then I'm guessing you're asking for an annual contribution or a one-time contribution?
Well, we would be excited about an annual contribution, but we would also be excited about a one-time contribution. Yeah, obviously we prefer annual. That's always nice to know that you have funding coming in. And we have had annual grants from businesses, but at this point, we don't have any multi-year funding coming from businesses. I think a lot of the oil field companies have pulled back from doing multi-year right now. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Curry. Councillor Chouinard.
Firstly, getting back to training, because we have people sometimes apply for work, so where you mentioned that if they want to advance so is there something, let's say someone's on unemployment and they're going to get into the trucking industry, and with the new paperwork, would there be any special rates? So if someone come and applied and they're not capable of doing this, then you would have a training, and then can you back charge that to unemployment or something, or how would that work? So I'm trying to figure out, how do you train and yet you're helping a person advance, but obviously, like you said, they can't afford it.
Yeah. Well, usually when people are unemployed, then we subsidize, like we waive their $20 fee for their training. And how it works in the Learning Center is too, it's all, people come in, we do an assessment, kind of figure out what they need to improve, and then we tailor it towards them. So as I said before, people will bring in forms from work, we'll just work specifically on those forms.
Right,
we won't do like, a bunch of reading from textbooks or something like that that's not applicable to them. It's just practical stuff. So it kind of depends on how many hours they need and what kind of forms they
Well, the only point I'm trying to get, because you're looking for funding, and if you're helping an individual that's unemployed to go back to work, and yes, you're subsidizing, but with that said, then if you can bill back to the unemployment fund or some kind of, the province or federal, because sometimes they'll pay for moving and stuff, but I'm thinking if an individual comes to apply for a job, and if you can help them to get them a lot better educated so they can fill out the paperwork, and then therefore the employer says, yes, if you can do this, then I can hire you. So if you can back fund somehow, that would help you get the money. I appreciate that you're doing
It's
that,
true.
but it is costing you money.
There isn't really anything like that available, but I will let you know about the Canada-Alberta Job Grant. It is a great opportunity for employers that need to train staff because if their application is successful, the funding is from the federal government but distributed provincially.
Right.
2/3 of the employment cost, and now that includes if they have to travel, some of the travel costs will be paid, and accommodation if, say, they have to go to a course in Edmonton or something like that. So it is well worth looking after, and we can help employers with that to explain the paperwork that's required or how to go about it.
And we have done a couple contracts with
That's
Alberta
right.
Human Services or
Okay,
Alberta
yeah.
Supports as they are now. We've done, I think, 3 or 4 contracts with them. But right now, they just, with the change in government, they didn't, they switched all their contracting around, and there hasn't been anything available as of lately.
Right, 'cause
Okay.
that, you know.
Thank you, Councillor Schneider. We got another councillor
Go ahead,
waiting.
Brian.
Councillor Sorensen, go ahead.
Through the chair, excellent presentation. I just had a quick question. Have you considered reformatting your subsidized learning grant, I guess you would call it, to individuals and reformatting it as a loan so that the goal is to get them a job and perhaps they would be willing to repay that back and have a rolling fund? I'd be much more excited about giving seed money to an organization that would rotate that money and perhaps when people do get a job, pay it back, even if it was 0%, you know. Just
Yeah, that's a good
thought of
idea.
it.
It's an interesting idea, but I think for our staff, it would be overwhelming. We're all part-time. There is nobody that works, you know, a 40-hour or 44-hour week. We are a collection of, you know, 28 hours or whatever, and I think just putting something together like that would be overwhelming. But saying that, we have so many grateful students that come back to us and do try to help, you know, when they are employed or do the best they can. And for us, it's seeing them succeed and seeing them, you know, go from a single mother that had no hope at all of getting any kind of a job that would support her family to all of a sudden working in, you know, management or something much better, where she's able to get off the welfare ranks or come out of a low-paying job that's taking her away from her family and getting her nowhere.
Yeah.
All right. Councillor
Just one
Bevan.
other thing through the chair, to Vera. Can I get your card, please? Because I will
Absolutely.
pass this on to another, one of the companies here, and I will take it over personally, so.
You can have as many as you like.
They're all going.
All right, well, thank you very much for your presentation, and I just want to be very clear, our budget situation's quite tight this year, so we're actually looking at some reductions in staff later on in this meeting, so we certainly will take it under consideration, and if anything changes, we will certainly let you know.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
And feel free to stay for the rest of the meeting if you like, or we certainly understand if you want to continue on with your evening. All right, can I get a motion, please, that council give first reading to bylaw number 2229, being the Records Management and Retention Bylaw? Councillor Curry will make that motion. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Councillor Chenard?
Excuse me, we're passing first reading. Is there any urgency in passing it quickly? Because like I stated before, like some of the paper forms, if we can make use of storage elsewhere, because this is the destroying of records, there's no urgency to pass this quickly, or?
CEO Derricott?
No, certainly not, other than that we just have a current bylaw in process that is quite out of date, and we're certainly interested in moving forward with a new process and putting some new protocols and procedures in place that will help us modernize our records management process.
Councillor Sorensen and Councillor Byer.
The last time we discussed this, I asked if we perhaps could talk to the museum and see if there's any value in some of our historical documents and original signatures and things like that. Were you able to talk to the museum?
Through to administration.
Thank you. I don't believe we've made that connection yet, but we certainly can still do that as this process continues forward.
Thank you, Councillor Sorensen. Councillor Byer.
Through the chair to administration, thank you for your consideration on the recreation parks and facilities, plant logs, and building maintenance records. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Councillor Byer. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion carried. Can I get a motion, please, that council adopt youth council policy number C-S-7 as presented? Councillor Byer will make that motion. Any questions, comments, or concerns? We talked about this several times at committee, so I think we're good to go. I'll call the question then. All those in favor? Motion carried. Now the moment everybody's been waiting for. The council, can I get a motion, please, that council approve the 2019 operating budget as presented? Councillor Sorensen will make that motion, and we'll welcome Ms. Spittner to the table and maybe just give us an overview of what has changed since our last discussion on this matter.
Get this set up.
Okay.
Okay, so what we're presenting today is any of the changes that was from the November 27th meeting of last week. At that point, the budget that was given to you back then was at the 4.5% increase, and the direction from council was to bring that to about a 3.9 in a twofold process. First, for the actual operational side of it, to get it to 3.5, and then to bring it back to 3.9 for one of those issues that we can start dealing with our taxation pressures. So just looking first at the, I brought the timeline back again, highlighted December 4th. We're now this far down the, the budget timeline, just to show you where we are. Okay. So the changes that we made for the operational side of it was we looked back into the salaries, wages and benefits, and we managed to get a decrease of 106,000 there. This was based using, there were some salary adjustments, so a decrease in benefits. There was a decrease in our LAP pension contribution rate. And we're also looking at staffing levels, suggesting the removal of 2 summer students, one from Public Works and one from Parks, to get us to that 106,000. Again, there was the natural gas contract. There was a decrease there of 34. We also decreased the Public Works contracted services by 20,000. This could mean a minor change in service delivery there with that 20,000 coming off. As again, the budget's always a living, breathing document. Between then and now, we actually received the finalised budget from the Adelaide County for the 911 centre, and there was an increase of $18,500 for that. That equated to around a 12% increase. It was due to some wage adjustments at the county, as well as some requirements from the province for staffing levels. They have to have a certain amount of staff there 24/7, supervisor there for certain hours, etc. So there's a bit of a change for those staffing levels to match those requirements as well. And then as we have cost sharing agreements with our county, all of these adjustments affect those as well. So that was a revenue decrease from them for 34. So add it all up together, it's about 107,000, and that gave us our 4.5 to 3.5 decrease from the operational side. So any questions on that part before I move on to the next part?
Yes, Councillor Byer, go ahead.
Through the chair to Sarah. So when you talk about the removal of the 2 summer students, one from Parks and one from Public Works, what kind of expectation of reduced services are we looking at?
I might have to refer that over to.
Go ahead, Mr. Derek.
Yeah, thank you. I think if we were to just think about the typical tasks of a summer student in the Parks Department, they're mowing grass, whippersnipping, taking minor trail maintenance. It would just mean a slight reduction in the man hours we had to apply to that. I'm not even certain it would necessarily be visible to the average person, but we just wouldn't have as many hours to deploy. And similar in Public Works, they're generally doing crack sealing on the roads, they're doing painting of crosswalks and curbs and some other things like that. And it would just mean that it's possible we wouldn't get quite as much of that done as we would if we had that additional resource.
Okay. Any other further questions, Councillor Byer? You good?
Does that also include the Public Works contracted services? then that's separate from the summer students? What would that look like?
Thank you. So this would be more along the lines of things like line painting that we hire additional outside contractors to support. And so again, that would just mean that we might have to reduce a little bit of what we might do in that area. Contracted services in any given year can go up or down, and so it's possible that it has no impact if depending on how things go. But just anytime you reduce those resources available, we just obviously we only have the resources that are available and may have to just hold off on. But again, just want to reiterate that we would only anticipate a minor effect on any of those processes.
Thank you, Councillor Byer. Councillor Chenard?
Okay, I'm just following, so we got a decrease of 106, we got a decrease of 34, we have a decrease, so we're at about 150, and then increase 18, so when I kind of do out the math, we're looking at about 150, so that'd be like 1.5%. Decrease from last year, am I reading that correctly?
Yeah, if you may look at the last one, it's actually a revenue decrease as well.
Yes,
So
yeah, and
it's
that's
closer to just over $100,000.
Okay, because that's what I was just roughly doing the math, should have run the big calculator out, so that's about 1% decrease from last year's expenses, correct?
So from the 4.5 that we presented last week, it's now 3.5 operationally.
Okay, so this isn't a decrease from last year, this is from the 4.5%.
This is from last week's presentation to you.
Okay, because that's what okay, I'll keep that in mind and I'll wait to go on and have another question.
Any further questions on this portion? Hearing none, we'll move on.
Okay. So the 3.9 also included a 0.4% amount that would be going towards relieving parts of the budget that are funded from areas other than taxation, but should be funded from taxation. So we have external sources like we mentioned, the medical centre rent and the revenue sharing agreement reserve. So they're monies that are from external sources that are actually reducing our taxation. We have some internal sources, which our utility rates are going against the taxes to the tune of 480, as well as what's used from the tax stabilisation fund to bring us down to a balanced budget. The external pressures really should be looked at to be alleviated before the internal pressures, because we have control over the internal pressures, but not as much control over the external sources. So administration recommends that we allocate this 43,000 towards a specific purpose within the budget. One suggested is the multiplex operating reserve. If you remember at the budget workshop, we have already allocated 50,000 of that medical centre rent towards starting this reserve for the multiplex operating. This would then just increase that reserve to 43. One of the reasons why we think it's important to actually have it towards a specific purpose is that if you're using it within the tax stabilisation fund, this fund is usually used to help balance the budget to zero. So just I'll show you a history of the last few years since 2010. You'll see that obviously the budget year. The next column is the budgeted amount we've used from tax stabilisation to balance the budgets to zero. The next column is when we've ended up with an operating surplus or deficit within that year. So we actually used zero amount of dollars from the tax stabilisation fund when it comes to the end of the year. And the reason for that is that budgets are obviously going to be scarce for the estimates of what's happening for the year to come. And there's always variables that affect those figures, such as we get items acquired at better rates than we thought, or some budgeted initiatives might not go ahead, be postponed or cancelled. So they all come into that surplus deficit at the end of the year. As you can see, we've only ever in this last sort of recent times had a deficit of 47,000. These surplus and deficits flow through to that unrestricted surplus, and because that was such a low amount, we didn't bother subsidising that from the tax stabilisation fund. So this is why the administration is suggesting that we put a specific purpose on that 43,000 rather than letting it just flow through to that unrestricted surplus. This way we're actually using it for something instead of just letting it kind of flow through.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Chenard?
Okay, we're doing the 43,000, so when we did last year's budget at 1.9, I believe the Rex complex was our cost of about $150,000 a year to keep the Rex complex going from last year's budget, keep the light on, powers on, bare minimum. So wouldn't it be fair, so moving into 2019, we no longer have that 150,000 that was in last year's budget, that we can just carrying over from last year, we have an extra 150,000 in a matter of speaking and put that into reserves. That's the part that I'm trying to figure out what happened to that $150,000.
What we did with, I think way back to the budget workshop, it was a
Yeah.
while ago now.
Yeah.
That balance for the rec complex, we had actually funded that from the revenue sharing to bring that to a zero. So it wasn't actually going into the reserves. But the other side of that is we were putting the money from the medical centre into that multiplex operating reserve.
Okay, so that would
So
be the
that
main
was-
reason behind it is the possible loss of the approximate 200,000 from the medical center would, in essence, even out what we were paying to 150,000, and previous years was 250,000. We were doing more to the Rex complex. So it would be mainly affected by the possible loss of the rent revenue from the medical center. Because right now, we're getting rent, and it's anyone's guess how long that's for.
If I may, Ms. Bittner, we did discuss this at one of the committee meetings. Basically, what you're saying is correct. We're not spending on the recreation complex next year, but we are actually putting money aside for the multiplex.
Yep.
And with how the numbers are rolling, yeah,
Okay.
that money is, through various means, is going to future operations of the multiplex. So if we actually had the rec complex operational costs this year, we'd be looking at another 1 to 1.5% increase over and top what we're talking about. Would I be correct? Ms.
Sorry, yeah,
Bittner?
thank you for that. I was just trying to get that. If you actually look on the budget document in the reserves, we actually have proposed for that reserve at the end of this year, at the end of 2019, about 193,000. So we are using $100,000 from our the Repsol place
Mhm.
to put into that reserve, as well as the 50 from the medical centre and the proposed 43. Into that. So the budget presented today is including everything that we have said here, including that recommendation to put that money into that particular reserve.
Thank you.
Clear as mud.
It's clear as mud.
Lots of numbers, lots of, yeah. Councillor Sorensen.
Through the chair to administration, when will we know if we have a surplus or deficit for this year?
Go ahead,
For
Ms. Bittner.
2018?
Very, very soon. It's one of those things, I'm not going to put a number on it because I've been caught before in the past with a number. There's a lot of year-end entries that we need to do as we're going through our auditing process. So from what I looked at today, we are anticipating a surplus. So therefore, just to show that we also this year will not be using the tax stabilisation fund.
If I may, somewhere between 2017 and 2015 on that list there.
No, but you would know by February?
Yes,
Yeah.
Okay.
yes,
We will have that information before we finalize.
absolutely, yes.
Any other further questions on this? I do have one question just for clarification for more for the media and the public. So when we're looking at this, those look like big numbers in terms of surplus, but a lot of the times those numbers flow into infrastructure reserves. Is that correct?
Yes. When we have surpluses, we always look at our reserves to see where we can be, helped to bring those up to, more higher levels. So it's never just sitting there as a surplus. It's usually put towards specific reserves for the future.
And through to administration also to handle any cost overruns on said infrastructure projects as well, correct? All right. Thank you. Any other questions, comments, or concerns?
You're not calling the question, are you?
Yes.
Then I have another question.
Okay. Go ahead.
So I always ask this question in terms that you did clarify that. So what I'm saying, if we pass 3.9, because that's what's recommended, so in the upcoming January, February, March, somewhere along there, if we get, because like say the surplus comes into play, then we can address, and if, let's say we gotta increase it to 4.9 because something unforeseen, we can do that at that time? Because because the way I understand it, when council passes the budget, we are turning it over to admin. It's no longer council's budget because we've passed it.
Yep. It's always council's budget, Councillor Chanel. And it's always living and breathing, like even between last week and this week we had some information come in that changed those numbers. So if there's any significant changes within the operational side of it, we would obviously bring those forward. If nothing was to change, then this would be what would then carry forward to May. But that, we will always look at those items before we bring it back.
Right, because that's the only problem I have with, like, when we pass numbers, because there's too many unforeseen, and we gotta pass it sooner or later, I totally agree. But we come into January, come into February, there's MSI granting that's supposed to be guaranteed, there's other grants and factors that come in that are unknown, that all of a sudden we're like, oh, wait a minute, we did, because I reckon, you know, I do commend where it was coming in at 4 or 5, like big numbers, and down to 3.9, I'm much more comfortable with those numbers. But I just feel uncomfortable passing something when I have too many unknowns that can show up in January and February.
If I may, yeah, thank you, Councillor Chenard. Certainly, in the last several years, any adjustments are actually quite minor, and they're only as we gain information. But we have not seen any substantial changes to a budget document. Certainly, since I've been here with the town, it's unusual to have any substantial changes. It's only minor adjustments as new information becomes available. That's all that we would anticipate. But certainly council always has the prerogative to make adjustments if significant circumstances do change, and administration would certainly come back to council and present that information and opportunity for council.
One more question before we pass it then.
Final question, Councillor Chenard.
Okay, then the only thing I'm uncomfortable with, I guess, on this thing is last year we did a 1.9 and this year we're 3.9, so 2% different. So I was going through the budget and I understand cost of living increases marginally, but I'm just trying to figure out, you know, we went up 2 from last year, and with the added expenses to the taxpayers, 3.9 is something comfortable that I believe I can live with, because I agree we need to pass something to keep on to the cost of living. If we always went 0, 0, and then we'd have to go 10. So we can't be 0, 1.9, so I'm just trying to, what would be the 2% increase? That would just be cost of living increase, and where would 2% over last year's budget?
Councillor Chenard, I'll take a stab at that question
You go
for
ahead
you.
and stab.
So we had a number of cost pressures. Of course, we have $76,000 of additional costs thanks to the carbon tax, which I continually bring up. We also have issues with the Chinese markets closing, and the additional funding for the Recycling Society is something that we need to fund. We have, of course, everything is going up, it seems like, in terms of operational costs. And last year we did a 1.9% increase, which was lower than what we probably should have, because that was funded through reserve. We took 1% fund from reserve, and now we're playing catch up on that. So all those numbers factored in is where we are today. If we actually did what we were supposed to do last year, and I take some responsibility, this is the Mayor of Edson, we would have had a 2.9% increase last year, and this year's increase would have been a 2.9% increase. So that's where we are today. That's the problem when you do zeros or low numbers like that, when you're trying to help the general public out in terms of lowering your increases without decreasing service levels and pulling money from reserve. That money has to be made up eventually, and that's where we are today. We also are anticipating some reductions in terms of medical center revenue, which has been offsetting taxes for the last 2 years, and we're trying to remedy that. So that's where we are today. I think we've done a fine job. We spent a lot of time on this budget. Not everybody's going to be happy, but for the long term, I think we're making the right decisions. So,
Can I just do a quick closing, or no? I think someone else has a question before me.
Councillor Byer, go ahead.
Through the chair to administration. So that 43,000, 0.4% in the operating reserves is called the multiplex operation reserve? Okay, cool.
Yeah. Thank you. Closing comment.
Okay, so that was a great answer. So I guess I'll have to look, in my mind, it should have been 2.9 last year like that. So if I look at the average, I commend you for working on it, because when we started on this back in November, we were some pretty scary numbers. 3.9, I guess, when we average over 3 years, or last 2 years, is 3% per year, 2.9 and 3. So I'm not really comfortable with it, but I commend you for doing a job.
Yeah, and I want to also reiterate what Councillor Chenard is. Thank you, administration. There's been a lot of work done on this in terms of not only the numbers, but our citizens' engagement as well. So we're only going to build on that for next year and make it even a better process. Councillor, Mr. Derek,
I don't think you have that kind of authority, Mr. Mayor. Yeah. Thank you. And I think from the administrative side, certainly Sarah and Mike did the lion's share of the work, but from our perspective, council's engagement and feedback has been as good as certainly my time here, and that's, I think, critical to getting to an end result that I think is satisfactory, if not appealing. And we certainly recognize the time and effort and energy that council put into their deliberations, and you as a group were presented with some challenging and difficult decisions to make, and we don't take that lightly when we bring them to you. And we recognize that's part of your job, but we certainly commend your engagement in that this year as well.
All right. Thank you. So I'll call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carried.
I almost recorded the motion.
Can I get a motion, please? Council approve the 2019 capital budget as presented. Councillor Curry will make that motion, and Ms. Bittner, I don't think there's anything new to add to this. This is
No, that's
pretty
exactly as it
straightforward.
was presented last week and in previously.
All right. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Just want to make mention that I think this capital budget is excellent. We're doing some pretty amazing work over the next year. We should be very excited about the work we're doing with infrastructure and in terms of the multiplex as well, and hopefully we can see that move forward. So I'm very excited about that. Go ahead, Councillor Sherman.
Okay, I'm against 3.9, but there's a lot of work. I understand the extra costs and stuff, so I guess what we'll have to do in the upcoming year is virtually continue the good work of administration and Sarah as well, and we have to tighten up and hang on so we can hold this for the following year. So I don't like it.
We're on capital right now, so it
I know,
doesn't, yeah.
but still, it's the same thing. We gotta hold the line on all spending.
Yeah. All right, thank you, Councillor Chenard. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. No information items, no sundry items. Council committee reports. We're going back to November 21st, and we will start with Councillor Wilkinson.
Oh, I've got a long one, so I won't bore you too much. I went to the FCSSAA conference November 28th, 29th, and 30th. Our AUMA president was there and spoke. It was the first time that he'd ever been at our conference. 370 delegates, so that was very good. The opening speaker was Mike Downey, Lord Downey's brother, and it was about their book, The Secret Path. And at our regular meeting, I stepped down as the district representative, and Brian Broughton is going to be that. So I'm really pleased because he was the district representative, and then somehow through shuffling around, he wasn't available, he couldn't do it, he wasn't on the board, so I replaced him. Now it's vice versa. I like that. And I still am the town rep, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Yes, that's good. All right, we had an MLA breakfast, and Minister Ephraim Sabir from Community and Social Services spoke, and Danielle Larrabee with Children's Services. Very interesting talks. I had a session on the top 10 promising practices of how municipalities are creating more inclusive communities. And it's very interesting, you know, you think you're inclusive, but of all the special needs in a community, not necessarily so. And there are modules available for AUMA to use. They did discuss, Jasper had done a project with 500 people. They had 500 photographs of people, so we got to know who was out there, and they talked about conversation cafes. I went to one on the opioid crisis, and again, they say to make any difference there has to be a personal connection. And they did talk about a mental health initiative where a fire chief talked about his struggles with his mental health issues, and they said when someone in a high profile in the community can discuss that they actually have problems, it becomes meaningful to everyone that there can be a change. There was also talk about the garden loft, which they really have been talking a lot about at FCSS, and it's sort of like a trailer that you can put in the backyard, and the sewer and the water attached to your house through sort of like an umbilical cord, and seniors can live in there. It's a smart building, so they know when you wake up how long you slept, if you've lost weight, if you've gained weight, like that at all.
Oh, wow.
Really keeps good track on people, and a company is making these, and they rent them out for $1,900 a month. Now you'd think that would possibly be good for Evergreens Foundation, but this is not inclusive of food or extra care. So then I think they're pricing themselves out of our markets. I went to a community health program, and then the keynote speaker was Ann Dowsett Johnson, and her book was on drink. It was very interesting. But the big highlight was, would you like to stand up, Tanya? The Community Engagement Action Team won for their project in this field. So it was very nice to Tanya. So I have an annual report, I'll put it in the staff room if people are interested. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councillor Wilkinson. Councillor Sorensen.
I have a very quick report. On the November 23rd, we had the Edson District Recycling Society board meeting. November 27th, we had the Community of the Whole meeting, and that's the end of my report.
All right, Councillor Byer.
Okay. On Wednesday, November 21st, I had a library board meeting, and our in-person visits are holding steady. We're expecting to reach over 100,000 unique visits this year on their electronic counter. And they've got a tree decorating party at the library coming up this Saturday, December 8th from 11 to 2. It's a family event. They'll have crafts, light snacks, and hot chocolate. And you can decorate an ornament to either take home or put on the tree, I suppose. And then I also attended the meeting with the Edson and District Recycling Society on Friday, November 23rd, the COW meeting on the 27th, and on Thursday, November 29th, I attended the Yellowhead Synergy group meeting. Councillor Bevan was away, and we had some discussions on the real estate markets in Edson and Hinton and how they're only 45 minutes apart, but they're pretty much opposites. Edson is struggling and Hinton is selling quite quickly, as well as Pierre. So we kind of had a discussion on how, why is that happening? And, Hinton's got a few new industry things that are right there. They've got the mine on the highway, and then the Cardinal River mining expansion is expected to have people working from either Hinton or Rob, perhaps. So that's also helping them. And there's some say that maybe the limestone mine is also creating more interest as well. And then in Piers, they've got the cannabis growing operation there. And we just haven't had that here to help us out. So when we look right around our region, that could be why our housing market is struggling. And we had a speaker from the Edson Snow Seekers Club, and he talked about how they've got some challenges that they have with red tape and trying to secure their lines and have their leasing, and he also talked about some of the opportunities they're trying to get their name out there a bit more, and I know they are interested in coming to council, so I won't steal his thunder. And then just a report from all around the area. There's not a lot of new wells planning on being drilled from the people that, from the companies that attended, and that's a pretty big summary of it.
All right. Thank you, Councillor Byer. Councillor Bevan.
Thank you. 23rd, attended Recycling Society, and thank you for going to the Synergy. I was up in Hinton at our strategic planning for community service there on the 29th and 30th. We had a strat plan meeting in that. We went over everything we'd done last year and what we're going to plan on going ahead doing this year and that. We haven't really finalized anything at all. Nancy's still putting it together. She's going to get us all out the information on that, and going to give me a copy of that, and I'll throw it on the back table back there to do that. We did say goodbye to Rob and Johannes from Grant Cash. They got the letter that same day when they came down to our meeting that the MD is now taken over, so they are no longer having representatives down there to us and that. We did ask the question, would the MD be interested in putting somebody back on the board? They kind of feel they would, but they really don't have to, but they should be still a partner in that, but they don't know. So they did vote in 2 other members from their council to sit with the MD up there and that, and if they do decide to, it'll be 2 different people that are coming down. But they're still all up in the air for now, so we did say goodbye to them, and Sean used to come to it every now and then. I think he was the alternate too. He couldn't make it, so we say our goodbyes to them, and it's very good council people, very nice people. We had representatives from Grant Cash. They had a lot of input on a lot of stuff, and that kept us up to date and that, and stuff like that too. So other than that, like I said, we had a strat planning meeting. It went well. Everybody participated. We had a nice exchange. And that, you got what you wanted.
Yeah. He was in charge of the exchange, and he pulled a last minute switch your final gift. But it's okay, you guys. I used my strategies. I still got my gift.
But it was good. We had a good strat planning meeting and that, and we'll have more to follow after that. So
all right.
That's all I can say in that. So.
Thank you, Councillor Bevan. Councillor Curry.
On the 23rd, also attended the Edson District Regional meeting with the Recycling Society and Council. And then was at the strat planning on the 29th and 32. Trevor covered, Councillor Bevan covered the bulk of that. They are looking at revenue sources, and when the strat plan is finalized, I think we can bring it back. Just remembering that we do own 20% of that we are the owners of it as a municipality. So we'll bring that back when that comes. And just I had to miss the Edson Historical Society, but I do want to update on it, because there is something that we did pass that I think we just need to be aware of with our committees. With our financial policy, they were just passing, they updated all of their financial policy to make it meet our financial policy bylaw, which I really appreciate. They got on that right away. But unfortunately, I think 5 of us were out of town and 2 other people were not available. So it came to that, what do we do, because it's a financial matter. So they had contacted us, and so just with your own organizations, we agreed that it was okay through email. So I had gone through the whole finance policy and such, and had emailed my acceptance on that. But just that is something that we need to be aware of. I think a fluke that all 7 of us were not available, and I think all 5 of us were doing council stuff, and 4 other councillors who were also out of town. So it was just something to be aware of with our own. But they did, and really appreciate that they were really fast on that they have already updated and changed their financial policies to meet the new bylaw. And just to let you know that they already have received some financial support within the community for what may, and they were building it back. I have let them know that was passed in the capital budget, but that if it got passed tonight, and it was, but that we would like to see that number closer to what they had originally asked for. So they've already got some money coming in from community support.
Thank you, Councillor Chenard.
Just to comment to Councillor Byer, I'm pleased with the numbers at the library, because I can remember years ago, no one would believe, but with the counter in, 100,000, I'm pleased with the number. My only thing to report is November 23rd, I also attended the recycling meeting. That's it.
All right, thank you, Councillor Chenard. For me, November 23rd, the meeting with Recycling Society, I thought we had some really good conversation there, and that's my report. We're going to move on. We have no financial matters, questions from media and public regarding items from this council meeting. Go ahead, Mr. Moore.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Has town or council ever contemplated at some time a wage freeze for town workers or town management?
Can't really comment on that, as that's part of collective bargaining. So I don't believe in recent years there has been a wage freeze for any town staff, unless CEO Derricock can speak to that.
2 years ago, was it 2 years ago we did zero? Yes, 2 years ago when we did the 0% tax increase, there was a management wage freeze initially instituted. And then when we were fortunate to have a quite large surplus that year, some of that money was allocated to some cost of living adjustments for management at that stage. But it certainly has been a conversation at this table in recent years.
Right. Okay.
Any other?
Oh, and about the 3.9, do we have anything we can compare it to as to how much increase that would be per month by, say, a particular?
Ms. Bittner can get that to you. I know she did work some numbers earlier in regards to an average assessed property. So she can certainly work on that and give that to you.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? All right. Thank you very much. We do have an in-camera session, so I'll take that motion right now. Councillor Byer will make that motion to move into in-camera. All those in favor? Motion carried. All right, we're out of camera now. If I take a motion, Councillor Byer.
I'd like to make a motion to spend $150,000 to deal with the personnel issues as discussed in camera to come from the unrestricted surplus.
All right, motion's on the floor. I'll call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carried. And second motion from our in camera.
I'd like to make a motion that Mayor Zaher has a conversation with CEO about his performance review and let him know what we decided.
All right, call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed, motion carried, and can I get a motion?
Important
Motion for adjournment?
Adjournment.
Oh, wow. There's no-
Councillor Char makes that motion, all those in favor, motion carried.